Welcome back to Rich Rodriguez Season by Season. Coming off his first conference championship as a head coach at the Division I level, Rich Rodriguez entered 2004 in a season of transition, not just on his roster, but in the conference around him and his team. Let's first take a look at what the Big East would look like for this upcoming season. Two of the league's top teams throughout the first decade of the conference would not return. Both Miami and Virginia Tech bolted from the Big East to the ACC. Most reinforcements were still a year away from joining the conference, but former FCS power Connecticut joined in 2004. The Huskies entered the Big East coming off a 9-win season and 4 BCS conference team wins in 2 years. Now on the field, it was more turnover. The offense still had some key returning pieces in some areas, but for the first time since 1996, there was no clear answer at running back.
Much like Mountaineer Field, the WVU football team is a work in progress. Spring practice is a time to iron out some of the wrinkles the team has early on, but after day one, head coach Rich Rodriguez says things are looking pretty good.
Our enthusiasm was good. I think the guys they're anxious to get outside because they've worked hard, for 7-8 weeks indoors in the weight room and in the indoor facility, and I think they're ready to play some football.
Rasheed Marshall entered the season ready to play his brand of football. After developing as a passer in 2002 and 2003, he was ready to become a full dual threat in 2004, and he'd need to be. With the loss of Quincy Wilson, there was no straightforward option in the backfield. Two backups from the 2003 season, KJ Harris and Jason Colson, were competing for the starting spot.
They've gotten a lot better the last couple of days, both of those guys have, and we need them to fight through the nicks and the pains, and that's the thing that our tailbacks here the last 3 years have been able to do.
On the defensive side of the ball, it was all about the back end. Despite the losses of Brian King and Lance Frazier, Jamal Adai and Pac-Man Jones are ready to pick up the mantle.
But losing, guys that have made plays and started for 4 years is hard, but I'm so excited about these young kids because they come out every day, compete, and they're working really hard, and we feel really comfortable with them right now.
Even with all these moving parts, excitement was high for the Mountaineers. The old gold and blue replaced Miami and Virginia Tech as the bell cow of the Big East and was the preseason favorite in the media poll. Boston College and Pitt were set up as WVU's main challengers at 2 and 3, Syracuse at 4, league newcomer UConn at 5, and a familiar basement with Rutgers and Temple rounding out the poll. WVU wasn't just getting favorable poll spots in the Big East, but in the nation as well. The Mountaineers entered the season ranked 10th in the AP poll, its highest preseason ranking in school history up to that point. The BCS was no longer a dream in Morgantown, it was an expectation, and the journey started at home against East Carolina. If the season opener were to be described as a naval battle, ECU was a pirate ship and WVU was an aircraft carrier. Rasheed Marshall opened cannon fire on the first play, finding Brandon Miles down the far sideline for a 51-yard catch to set up an easy walk-in score. From there, the story was KJ Harris. The tailback made a statement, rushing for a WVU and Big East single-game record 337 yards off 25 carries for 4 touchdowns.
I guess anytime you break records, people make a big deal out of it. I kind of don't really look at it that big because it's the first game of the season, knowing that I have 10 more.
The scores didn't just come from the offense. Pac-Man Jones took a punt 76 yards to the house, one of many scores that guided the Pirates to the plank in a 56-23 WVU win. The next week, it was the Rasheed Marshall show in Orlando. He tossed for 225 yards and 4 scores and picked up another 65 yards and a touchdown on the ground against UCF. Chris Henry nabbed 2 of those touchdown receptions while Brandon Miles had the play of the night offensively, grabbing a tipped screen pass and then rumbling 57 yards to the end zone in a 45-20 win in the Sunshine State. With those first 2 wins, West Virginia rose to 7th in the AP poll, gaining respect nationwide. But that third game, that all-important third game, was a monkey that had been on Rich Rodriguez's back since the day he took the WVU job.
If you could use just one word to describe the series between Maryland and West Virginia over the last 3 seasons, it would be domination. Since 2001, Maryland have won 4 straight from the Mountaineers by a combined score of 155-51. But this Mountaineer team is ranked 7th in the country, and they're ready to go.
We ready to play, man. Ain't no ifs and buts about it. We got to come to play football. It's going to be a new year this year.
After 4 losses to the Terps in 3 seasons, the Mountaineers were ready to take down Maryland. Pac-Man Jones kept the pressure on the Terps with 2 early picks, including one that set up an easy rushing score by KJ Harris to put WVU on the board first. After both teams traded field goals, the Terps would tie it up in the third with a 27-yard passing score. With 1:20 to go, tied at 13, Maryland had an opportunity to take a late lead, but Nick Novak's 49-yard field goal attempt went wide left. Just over a minute later, Brad Cooper's field goal attempt was blocked, so both teams entered overtime. Mountaineer defense managed to hold the Terps to a field goal in its possession. Then after a week of smack talk in the press by Maryland's center, Rasheed Marshall put the game away with a strike on a slant to Chris Henry.
You got our best wideout against their best DB, and they won a lot of those battles, but we won one at the end.
I don't like to talk, but when you go out there and perform, above a level that people might not expect you to perform, the team we haven't beat in, 4 tries, and for him to say that, he's not on defense, so he couldn't have backed it up anyway. So all I got to say is he could just get on that bus. I'm pretty sure he's a big guy, he's a center, take his jelly donuts, and enjoy his ride back to Maryland.
The hangover was real the next week against James Madison. It took over 15 minutes for West Virginia to even find the end zone against the 1AA Dukes. Once the cobwebs were dusted off, the old gold and blue managed to have a good day statistically. Rasheed Marshall completed 17 of 22 passes for 184 yards and 2 scores to Chris Henry, and Adam Lenhort scooped up a JMU fumble in the second half to contribute to a 45-10 win.
Not very happy with the way we played, certainly not happy with the intensity. I think most of the guys will tell you that. I don't think we should apologize for any wins, but at the same time, our guys know that we got to play a lot better.
James Madison was not the team from the Old Dominion that most Mountaineer fans had in their sights that week. That team early on was Virginia Tech, a Big East to ACC defector that was hungry for some payback against WVU. If Mountaineer fans had any national title hopes that season, they were dashed in Blacksburg. By late in the third quarter, the Hokies held a 16-0 lead, all through special teams. WVU finally got on the board in the third when Eric Wicks intercepted Brian Randall and took it 34 yards to the end zone. After another VT field goal, Rasheed Marshall scored the game's only offensive touchdown with a 46-yard stroll down the sideline, but that's as close as WVU came in a 19-13 loss.
I told the team all their goals are still out there except going undefeated. You can't have that one anymore. But all your other goals are out there, and the number one goal we have every year is to win a Big East, and we haven't played a Big East game yet.
Everything else that we've set out to accomplish is still in reach. So I think as long as we stay focused and don't really let this loss fester on through the season, I think that we'll be fine.
The Big East journey started with a new foe in New England. League newcomer Connecticut and Dan Orlovsky, coming off an upset over Pitt, now had a sellout crowd. The future ESPN commentator was picked off 3 times, twice by Mike Lorello, to keep the shot collar on the Husky offense. Rasheed Marshall stretched his legs to become the first WVU QB since Major Harris to run for over 100 yards in a game, as the Mountaineers picked up a 31-19 win over UConn. All right, 6 down, 5 to go, a 5-1 record. The Mountaineers entered the back half of the season impressive and respected, but their resume wasn't exactly knocking anyone over. The Mountaineers' best win to that point was Maryland, and since losing in Morgantown, the Terps had gone 1-2, sinking WVU to 20th in the BCS standings. It became clear, from here, the Mountaineers would have to take care of business to reach the promised land. A balanced offensive attack was the key to a Thursday night game against Syracuse. The Mountaineers chewed up 279 rushing yards, which included 87 from Rasheed Marshall to make him the Big East's all-time career rushing yards leader at quarterback, passing Donovan McNabb. If his running was historic, his passing was precise. 2 touchdown passes to Chris Henry and 1 to backup QB Charles Hales to lead the Mountaineers to a 27-6 win over the Orange.
Just being mentioned in the same sense with Vic and McNabb, I mean, you see those guys on Sundays doing the same thing they did in college, making plays, and just to be in the same category as them and actually surpass them, it's just great, man. It's great.
The train nearly came off the NJ Transit track at Rutgers the next week. Rasheed had another quietly efficient game with 165 yards through the air and 79 yards on the ground, but sloppy play defensively kept the Scarlet Knights around. Chris Henry would end up being the story, though. 2 unsportsmanlike penalties to lead to an ejection and a 35-30 squeaker in Piscataway.
Right now, he will play when I feel he's committed to doing, the things that the team is required to do, and that may take some while and may be quick. He's not going to start in the Temple game, not going to play in the first half, probably won't play in the game. And I don't want to get to all the parameters of what the rules and what he has to do to get back on the field, and maybe not, he might not play the rest of the year.
Chris Henry did have to sit in the first half of what was an uncharacteristically tight game with Temple. Rasheed Marshall managed a pair of passing scores to KJ Harris, but the Owls hooted right back with a pair of rushing scores from their quarterback Walter Washington to tie it up in the second quarter. 2 more rushing scores by Harris finally gave WVU some space. Late in the third quarter, Chris Henry's return is what juiced the Mountaineers and the crowd. Rasheed found him wide open in the end zone from 40 yards away to put a bow on a 42-21 win over Temple.
We control our own destiny. We've said that since day one, since we started Big East play 4 games ago. We want to be in the point where we control our own destiny, and so far we're still at that. And there's a lot of upsets every weekend in college football, and we've been able to avoid that so far.
And control their own destiny they did. Here's a look at the Big East standings going into the final 3 weeks of the regular season. WVU, the last remaining undefeated team in the conference, but the old Gold and Blue still had Boston College and Pitt left on the schedule, and both could still clinch a BCS bid. The final game played in Morgantown that season would turn out to be the only game played all year between 2 ranked Big East teams, WVU and outgoing member Boston College. With a win, WVU would clinch a share of the Big East championship and would be 1 step closer to a BCS bid. Special teams doomed the Mountaineers early with a 41-yard BC punt return, giving the Eagles an early 14-0 lead. While Rasheed Marshall found the end zone to close the first quarter, Boston College took a 24-7 lead into the locker room at halftime. A second half rally highlighted by a Rasheed to Chris Henry 6-yard strike kept West Virginia in the game through the third quarter, but special teams would once again be the Achilles heel for WVU. A 71-yard punt return wrapped up the series with the Eagles in a 36-17 win for Boston College.
Stand out there, guys are trying, maybe not playing the best. And you got recruits here, you got national TV, and you got your home crowd booing you when you're 8-1 and playing for a BCS Bowl, Big East Championship. Maybe that's what we've come to.
Not only would the loss take WVU off their perch atop the Big East, but they were also no longer in control of their own destiny. There was only one silver lining. The top 4 teams in the Big East would be playing each other on Thanksgiving weekend, giving the Mountaineers one narrow path to a BCS bid. There would be one final opportunity for WVU on the field, and it would be on the biggest of stages. Thanksgiving night, Pitt. The backyard brawl in the Steel City. But it would take place without one of WVU's biggest playmakers.
Chris Henry will be not playing in the Pitt game. He'll be suspended for the Pitt game for a violation of team rules. I don't want to go into all specifics about it. But we do have rules regarding effort in the classroom, in the weight room, in the practice field, and when those rules are violated, obviously the young men have to face some discipline action.
Early on against the Panthers, the absence of Chris Henry didn't seem to matter much. The Mountaineers made enough impact plays to take a 10-0 lead at the end of the first quarter. From there, the WVU defense picked up the mantle of responsibility, holding Pitt out of the end zone, but still allowing 3 field goals for a 1-point difference. West Virginia's offense finally woke back up in the third quarter. Rasheed Marshall made play after play, completing 11 of 16 on a drive to put another field goal on the board for the Mountaineers, a 13-9 lead. On WVU's next offensive drive, Rasheed went to the air again, but this time it was Pitt's Darrell Rivas who came down with the ball. Tyler Palco capitalized for the Panthers, capping off a scoring drive with a stroll into the end zone to put WVU behind for the first time all game. On West Virginia's last chance, Rasheed Marshall's last gasp didn't connect. On a trick play that saw the Mountaineer quarterback go out as a receiver, the ball just escaped his hands in the end zone, and Pitt knocked off WVU 16-13 in the backyard brawl.
We got a whole lot of correcting to do. It'll be a busy month, and it'll be a busy off season. I can assure you. Starting with me and the coaches and filtering on down.
Syracuse threw salt in WVU's open wound later that weekend when they upset Boston College. Had the Mountaineers beaten Pitt, they would have clinched the outright Big East title and gone to the Fiesta Bowl, but instead they had to settle for a share and a unique opportunity, a return to the Gator Bowl to face former coach Bobby Bowden and Florida State.
From an opponent's standpoint, they scare you. They scare me because they hustle and they hit good. And Rich always thought was one of the best offensive minds in football.
Those guys have recruited some of the best players in the country. So if you can compete well against them, it captures your attention because the recruits know about Florida State.
This Gator Bowl had the beginning of the previous year's Gator Bowl. The Mountaineer defense looked like Swiss cheese as Florida State's Leon Washington rushed 69 yards down the sideline for an opening score. Another special teams miscue added a field goal on the board for the Noles, but this season, WVU fought back. KJ Harris reached the end zone on a pair of scores, first on a 36-yard pass from Rasheed Marshall, then on a leaping score, but consecutive missed extra points only put the Mountaineers up 12-10. But that would be WVU's only lead of the game. FSU QB Chris Ricks finally got his act together in the second half and led a pair of seminal touchdown drives, and the Mountaineers would never find the end zone again in a 30-18 loss in Jacksonville. Not how the old gold and blue wanted to end the season. 8-4, punctuated by 3 consecutive losses, and the future looked uncertain. Rasheed Marshall, the dual-threat quarterback of Mountaineer fans' dreams, was graduating. And with a new-look Big East on the horizon, a lot of questions lingered ahead.
I think our expectation now is obviously to win the Big East championship outright and go to BCS Bowl. We didn't do that, and we got to share the championship and win a great bowl, January 1 Bowl. So it's not totally disappointing, but at the same time, I think we've raised the expectations to the point where there are a lot of folks that are disappointed with 8-3. But I think we have a lot of things that we could build off of, a lot of positive things, and some things we need to correct. So I think our pro is right on track.